thank you to Brian for your support on Patreon. Hey, you got out of the bath more than fine. That's good. God, I really need a stronger blow dryer. I know the feeling. I've started blow drying my hair every once in a while, and it feels like it takes for fucking ever. Either that or I'm going to have my Either that or to have my fur seriously trimmed. Drying myself was already a chore before, but it's even worse with my mobility reduced. Even so, still appreciate feeling fresh after leaving the bath. It does wonders for my mood in general. That much is for sure. Stepping into my room again, I stare at my bed while standing by the door. Resisting the urge to lie down and spend the whole day in bed is a lot harder than I thought it would be. I don't want to do anything. I want to lie down and shut everything else out. Be a lot more comfortable like that. Not have to deal with anyone. Not have to worry about what anyone else thinks. Just be by myself in my safe place. But I know that's not healthy. If I let my life happen all around me without being a part of it, I know I'd only regret it even more. Not that it makes it any easier to resist the allure. Still, I decided to ignore it, walking over to my desk instead. That is a very powerful thing you just did. God damn, that is hard. My family has a long history of depression. I think it was my grandfather that spent the better part of a whole year in bed because of how bad his depression was. So it's a very tough thing to do. So as much as Rutherford's being rough around the fucking edges right now and Spiky is all fuck, that is progress. That was progress. I can distract myself a little bit on the computer. That's what it's good for, after all. Without giving a second thought, I turn my laptop on, making sure the cord is properly plugged into the wall. Once the screen lights up, I stare at it a few seconds, uncertain of what it is I want to do. Finally decide to check my email first and foremost. I haven't done that in a few weeks. I'm sure there's a lot of crap for me to trudge through. Is this where the fucking college offer comes in? God, that would be a fucking dick kick. A lot of spam, for one, but also, this is why I didn't want to check it. 3 new sponsorship offers. A few journalists reaching out for an interview. Quite a few people want to comment from me after they notice I was absent from the regional tournament. God, there's dozens of emails here. I knew this was going to be a big deal, but that's a bit much. Even though I know it's not a good idea for my own mental health, I check each and every one of them. They're all pretty much the same, all what I'd expected. My absence was noted. They wanted a comment. Yada, yada, yada. I recognize a few names here as journalists and reporters that had talked to me in the past. Some of them are from major sports magazine publications, and I've gotten acquainted to them over the years. Then, after reaching a specific email, I froze. Blank what Tanabe-kun had to say on the matter. That one sentence hits me like a sucker punch to my stomach. Of course Tanabe would be asked to comment on it. There's no way he wouldn't be. He and I have faced each other at the finals of every major competition for the past 5 years or so. At this point, it's basically become a given that he and I would be playing each other every time. This was the Kanto Regionals. I already knew he was going to be there. It's not something I should be surprised about, but I don't want to know what he had to say about it. I just... Placeholder. Oh, this is probably... what the hell? Oh, ooh, stop chasing after me? Oh. Wow, Tanabe's a prick, huh? Stop chasing after me, Hayes. Not until you tell me what the hell that was. What was? Don't play dumb with me. You just refused a handshake in front of the whole audience and press. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is for me? I have no time for that. Are you even listening to yourself? If you're gonna half-ass your way through it, then why don't you just quit already? What do you mean? I don't know what you're wasting your time on, but not all of us have time to waste, okay? I'm not here to screw around. This is supposed to be a serious competition. I am being serious. Are you? Well, then I guess I'm disappointed. I used to look up to you. I guess I was expecting too much from you. Takagi-kun, don't call me that anymore. It's Tanabe. I don't know what is going on with you, but there's no way that this is you trying your best. If you're telling me that this is all you can do, then you and I have nothing left to talk about. Wow, what a piece of shit. Absolute piece of shit. After staring at the screen for way longer than I'd like, I finally decided to close the laptop, pushing it away from me. I leaned back on my chair, spinning around a couple of times and sighing. Wait a minute. How do you spin around? It's a fucking... It's not a spin chair, though. Oh, meaningless details that only I would take note of. Man, it's crazy to think that it's been that long since Tanabe and I last had a proper conversation. We used to hang out all the time during competitions when we were kids. It was the first tennis friend I have ever had. Well, there's Saya, but it's not the same thing. She and I were never rivals. It sucks that it took messing up my knee to finally get clarity on so many things. I got complacent, and before I noticed, Tanabe had caught up to me. Seeing someone suddenly being capable of matching me, especially after spending my whole childhood being praised and sucked up to the unbeatable champion. Yeah, right. The shock was enough to render me immobile for a while. Training lagged behind and my progress started to suffer. The gap between us widened further, making my situation get worse each and every time we'd play another match. Until eventually I lost in straight sets during that one national competition. Since then, Tanabe abandoned his relationship with me. We weren't friends anymore. We didn't call each other anymore. We didn't text anymore. We weren't anything anymore. And we would never be anything more. I think that was the first time I had my heart broken. It was a shock I never recovered from. Tennis had brought Tanabe into my life, and tennis was the cause for our relationship's end. It was enough to shake my confidence and make me put some distance between me and the sport, even if I didn't realize it all for the longest time. It's downright ironic and cruel that it'd take me this long to realize. I really am an idiot. Crap, don't start thinking about that. I don't want to cry again. 3 times in one morning would be too pathetic. I don't like this. I don't like being alone with my thoughts. I don't like the things I think of when I'm like this. I don't want to have any more crazy realizations. I've had enough of them for a lifetime. I just want this all to stop. When I try to think about something that would keep me grounded, it's hard to come up with anything concrete at first. My friends, my family. I have a lot of things that are precious to me still. I didn't lose everything, but even so, damn, feels like I did. Feels like a piece of me is missing, and no one else can understand that. And if no one understands, then what is the point of even trying? If I'm supposed to be surrounded by people who don't understand me, then I might as well be alone, right? Yet, there's a little voice in the back of my head that desperately tries to refuse that idea. I can't quite place it at first. It's so tiny and distant. But it's like it's screaming at the top of its lungs, fighting as hard as it can to be heard. If I close my eyes and try to give it a face, at first, it's hazy, but it's June. Somehow, it's your voice that I hear inside my head, June-kun. That's a horrifying image. I already have a thing about wide open mouths, but to see June crying like that, it's just sad. I know you're still hiding things from me, and I don't know how to feel about the revelation you gave me about yourself a few days ago, but more than anyone else, I feel like you understand what I'm going through right now. No, even before that, I feel like you understood me a lot better than even I did. I don't know what it is about you, but something about you drew me in. Something about you made me want to get closer and find out more about you. Without even understanding how you did it, somehow I fell under your spell. Even if my feelings were hurt that you were hiding things from me. And even if I couldn't understand why you'd tell me you were being fake with me all this time. Another even bigger part of me was happy that you even told me that. Happy that I was able to get a little further in. Happy that I was able to know you just a little bit better. 3 years ago, I lost something very precious to me. Something I didn't even know I had with Tanabe. Something I didn't even understand until quite recently. But now that I found you, something new and equally as precious. Something that I could finally understand. Some feelings I could finally put a name to. Oh, God. That's why at that moment... Oh, Jesus. I couldn't bear the thought of losing it again. God, this CG is burned into my fucking brain, man. I couldn't let myself lose something so important to me, because I didn't do anything when I had the chance to. That's why Thoughts like these are why I don't like being left alone without anything to occupy my mind. It's nothing for me to focus on. I can't turn my brain off and stop these kinds of thoughts from buzzing around. I wish I could be lying on the school rooftop. Looking at the clouds has always been such a good way of shutting off. Damn, I totally lost track of time. What was I even doing? Yeah? Sweetie, lunch is ready. Why don't you come downstairs so we can eat together? Sure, I'll be right down. I was being so annoying about wanting to be left alone just this morning. Only took me a few hours to change my mind, huh? God, I'm so pathetically weak. Walking downstairs, I see Mom setting up the dishware on the kitchen counter instead of the table and quickly decide to help her with it. Why, thank you, sweetie. No problem. It's kind of funny when I think of just how quickly I've adapted to this. I can move around the house way faster than I did just a few days ago now that I'm used to the crutches. And stairs are way less of a hassle than I initially thought they would be, too. Are we not eating at the table? It's just you and me. I figured the countertop would be fine. True. Don't really have a reason to argue against that anyway. God, I wish I had a kitchen with that much counter space. A little part of me wants to take the food up to my bedroom and eat there, even though I also don't want to be alone. I have no idea what I want, and that's incredibly frustrating. So, while I was grabbing the silverware and napkins, Mom went ahead and made both our plates. Lunch was pretty simple today. Just some rice, miso soup, grilled mackerel, and a few dumplings. That's an incredible lunch! Holy fuck, you know what I had for breakfast? Cheddar and peanut butter crackers. And that's not a diss on the crackers, but fuck, if I had, like, grilled fish and soup and rice and dumplings, fuck, man. That's gourmet in my part of the woods. Which suits me just fine. All this is incredibly delicious. Is there any particular reason why you decided not to go to school today? Of course. Hey, I'm not judging. I'm just, curious. Mom, come on now. You can't even talk to your mother? Do you really think I wouldn't understand? It's not that. Oh, then what is it? I really didn't want to have this conversation. I dropped the napkins on the counter, placing both hands on top of it and leaning forward against it, sighing loudly while trying to organize my thoughts into something even remotely coherent. The truth is, I have no idea what it is. My thoughts have been going around in circles lately, even more so than usual. I don't like being locked away at home. Being alone with my thoughts is terrible. Not having anything I can do to distract myself forces me to confront everything I thought I kept locked away. Even problems, thoughts, and feelings I didn't know I had keep coming up to surface and haunting me day and night. Truth is, I hate it. But I also don't want to leave. I don't want to get out of the house. I don't want to be seen. I don't know what will happen when I'm out there. I don't know what people will say, and I'm scared to find out. I don't know what I want. Rutherford, sit. The food will get cold if you don't eat. Right. This woman really deserves a medal. I've been horrible lately. I've been moody, snapping at people, locking myself away, being a huge burden. But not once did she raise a single complaint. Instead, she's been nothing but kind and caring to me the entire time. I'm not used to this. Mom isn't home often. I got used to not having a mom around. I don't know how to deal with this kind of thing. It's so simple, and it shouldn't be getting to me like this, but trust me, I understand. I feel like if I don't keep a good grip on my emotions, I might start crying. I take it that you and your little brother had a bit of a scuffle this morning? He had the cloudiest look on his face. I haven't seen him like that since we first got the news of your accident. Yeah, that was my bad. Don't worry about it so much. Akiyoshi won't hold it against you. He wasn't mad at you. He was just worried about you. I yelled at him through the door. I didn't even open the door to talk to him. I just locked it so he couldn't come inside in the middle of the night. I don't blame you. Akiyoshi has been going a little overboard as of late, what with him going into your room in the middle of the night and everything. You knew about that? I'm your mother. It's my job to know about it. Then why didn't you say something? If I did, I'd only make it worse. Your brother might be overcompensating, but you two need to work through it on your own. Akiyoshi got too used to you taking care of him all the time. He doesn't know how to handle being on the other side of it. You two are brothers after all. For all he'd whine and complain about you smothering him, it is the exact same when the roles are reversed. You're a lot more in the know than I thought you were, that much is for sure. Of course, that doesn't mean I wasn't worried. Barely sleeping through the night isn't healthy for him, and he's no help to you if he's keeping you up by doing it. But after what happened this morning, I'm sure he realizes it now, which is why he looked so worried. Or, well, could be a whole lot of other things going through his head. I might be his mother, but I'm not yet a mind reader. You sure are cheerful considering what we're talking about. If I let myself get down and depressed at every hardship life threw at me, I'd never have chosen motherhood. And I certainly wouldn't have survived your father's passing. That's a very good point. I wish I were that strong. Here I am, feeling like I might crumble at the slightest setback. Every time I think I've put myself back together, something happens that makes me feel like my world is ending all over again. Ow. Just fucking hit myself in the face with the microphone. And I'm tired of putting myself back together. What's wrong? That's a loaded question. I meant, what's on your mind right now? There's a lot on my mind. It's really hard to say. Well, is there anything I can help you with? Maybe I could give you some perspective if you'd let me. You don't have to tell me everything, but I can help if you tell me something. God, it's hard to say. It's all a jumbled mess, and I have such a hard time believing that anything can be helped. At the same time, there's a lot of things I've been going back and forth on for the past while, from both before and after the accident. It's hard to think of something that Mom could help me with, except for maybe... Can I really ask you about this, even if it's weird? Especially then. What's that even supposed to mean? That I'm the mother to a man who is just transitioning into adulthood. Some weirdness is to be expected. I guess that's true. What is it? What's on your mind? I've just been wondering ever since before the accident, and even more so after, what is love like? Love, huh? Yeah, sorry, is that too weird of a thing to be asking? Of course not. Don't be silly. Now, I'm assuming you're asking me about a very specific kind of love, right? Because I'm sure you must already know what familial love is like, or what loving your friends is like. Yeah. So you're asking me what it's like to be in love. Yeah. That's not easy to answer. I kind of figured. If it were easy, I wouldn't be struggling so much with it. Or at least I hope I wouldn't. God, it couldn't turn out that I am that incompetent, could it? Love and being in love, it's different for everyone. And it might even be different for different times, even if you're the same person. I've only had one great love in my life, and I've never been in love since. While I can tell you what that was like for me, I can't really claim that that's what love is like. That's fair. What I can say is that it wasn't always the same. It changed over time. It did? When I first fell in love with your father, it felt like some sort of cliche. I thought of him all the time. I wanted to be with him all the time. It was all consuming. While the feeling was nice for a while, there was also times where it felt suffocating, and worrying about how he felt for me back certainly didn't help. After all, I did tell you that the man didn't even realize I had feelings for him after a great many years, right? Yeah, yes, that's true. Man, that must have really sucked. It did. And I wasn't okay with it for a while. It did hurt to feel like I loved someone who wasn't loved back. That's what I meant by it being suffocating. Oh, wonder who that fucking... When your father finally realized what I meant and we became a couple, it was difficult. We were in two completely different stages of our relationship. I had loved him for a long time while he was still only testing out the waters. I felt insecure and vulnerable a lot of the time, like I was bracing myself for the pain that was sure to come. Wow. You need to talk to your mom a bit more. She is reading you like a fucking book. That sounds awful. Sure, but that was only part of the time. What do you mean? Your father might have been dense, but he wasn't an idiot. He understood what it was like for me. He understood the difference in our standing, and he did his best to make me feel safe and secure in our relationship. It might not have always worked out, but he worked on it. And in return, I worked to not become the kind of nutcase who's constantly obsessing about where everything is gonna go. Whether there's a future or not, whether he'll get tired of me. I worked hard to be in the moment and enjoy where we were. Because at the end of the day, that's what relationships are. Work. You put in the work every day and you hope that things go well. Every day. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's no different than any other relationship in your life, just maybe a bit more personal. Be it friends or family, you've got to put in the work to keep things from falling apart. Nothing grows if you just leave it to its luck. Or do you not try your best to fix things when you've made a mistake and hurt your friends? I guess that's true. Hadn't thought of that. But what if you're not sure? What if you're not sure you're really in love? Wouldn't starting a relationship then be wrong? Why would it be? I did just say your father didn't love me when we first started dating, didn't I? But, sweetie, worrying about that stuff, it's nice to take someone else's feelings into consideration, but it's pretty pointless. You don't need to be in love for a relationship to start. In fact, most don't start at that stage. It's something that comes later. To start a relationship, all you need is a mutual interest. You just put in the work and hope that something will come out of it. That love will come out of it, and that love will be mutual. That sounds like one hell of a gamble. Someone could get hurt like that. People get hurt from a lot of things. But it sure beats having to spend all your time agonizing over what could have been if you had just tried. Sure, it might not always work out, but it's better than the alternative. Trying is always better than not trying. If you don't try, you're guaranteed that you won't get a good outcome. The important thing is to try. Even if you're not sure what your feelings are, even if you're not sure your feelings are intense enough to be love, that doesn't mean you can't. Even if you feel romantically attracted to someone, that should be enough to give it a try. Is that how it is? Have I been overthinking this whole time? Yes! 30 days in, I can tell you for certain. Yes, you have been overthinking this entire time. But that's what firsts are. The first one is always the one that you're unsure about going into it. After you've had one or two relationships where, like, maybe this will be a thing, and maybe it does work out, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. That's when you start to take the reins off a little bit, and you start to realize that you're not gonna fucking fall off a cliff. You know, this isn't a balancing act over the Grand Canyon. This is walking across the street, you know. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that in regards to this kind of route. But anyway, I don't know. I've hurt people before by doing this. Getting into a relationship without being sure of how I felt is just, I mean, I guess with the girls I've dated before, I already knew for sure I had no feelings for them, but still, I care about June a lot. The thought of hurting him is unbearable. If I say yes on a whim and end up breaking his heart, I'd never forgive myself. Might I say that if it's a matter important enough for you to consider it so carefully, that should be an answer by itself? What do you mean? You obviously wouldn't be thinking so hard about it if you didn't care about this girl. It's almost like you're asking to be convinced. It seems like you really want it and just want to be given a reason to say yes. This girl? Oh, crap. Right, I totally hadn't considered that. Oh, man, this is probably going to be a huge shock for her. There's no way I can tell her right now. Yes, you can! Just say the words! Damn it. Right, you just might be right there, you know. You don't have to get so embarrassed. It's normal to feel awkward and vulnerable when this sort of thing happens, but everyone goes through it. Not everyone. Aromantic people don't, but yeah. I'm just happy there's finally someone you like enough to actually get like this. Yeah, I suppose. I just hate to think what would happen if I were wrong and it ended up not working out. I don't mean to be a cynic, but relationships fail all the time. If you keep worrying about the pitfalls, you're just going to lose the opportunity to grab onto something that could be really good for you. That's a good point. Just been looking for reasons to convince myself, huh? Is that what I've been doing? Besides, just think about it. How many things in your life have you ever been 100% sure of? Because I never have, not once, about anything. I was sure about wanting to keep playing tennis. Before even giving myself time to think things over, I blurt the first words that come out of my mind. Can't tell which one of us is more surprised when I do, but I immediately bite my lip, looking away from Mom like I just did something awful. Sorry, I didn't mean... Hun, it's okay. You don't have to try and cover yourself or anything of the sort. But come now. You didn't really think you'd manage to convince me of such a transparent lie, did you? Lie? What do you... What? What? You just suddenly grew tired of tennis? Or that you were hiding it this whole time? Sweetie, I love you, but you're not that good of an actor. It's true that you were struggling. But if I thought at any moment that you hated it, I would have said something. At least now I would. You knew? At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm your mother. It's my job to know things. Doesn't mean everyone's good at it. Especially with how often I'm away for work, developing a sharp intuition was an absolute necessity. Otherwise, I'd never know what was going on with you boys. And you didn't say anything? You're entitled to your own feelings and to deal with things in your own time. Especially after what happened. I know you didn't want to worry your brother or your friends. I won't hold it over you. I wish you didn't feel the need to lie about it, but I wasn't about to call you out on it. Well, except you kind of sort of did, in a roundabout way, at least. Woman, you scare me sometimes. Did you just call your mother woman? Good. That means I'm doing my job. Your job is to scare us? Is that what parenthood was all about? Then, boy, did I mess things up with Aki. Not that I'm his parent. Not exactly, at least. Is it weird that I'm a bit bitter that you didn't believe me? On what? The tennis lie? Yeah. Well, not really. Besides, I say that you're not that good of an actor, but you were actually surprisingly convincing from what I've seen. I know Akiyoshi fully bought into it. He was even feeling a bit guilty. Yeah. I might have just had a bit of an advantage compared to the others. After all, I got to follow your journey from the beginning, and from quite close at that. And what? And that makes a difference? A big one. I'll admit, at first I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. After your father passed, you became obsessed with tennis, but it didn't seem like you were quite enjoying yourself all that much. Every time I tried to ask you how practice was or how you felt about your matches, you'd always respond with something along the lines of, "Gotta do it for Daddy." It was concerning. I will admit to my own failure on the matter. I was afraid that you were clinging to something that wasn't wholly your own idea because you felt you had to, or something along those lines. I thought I had to do or say something about it, stop you so you didn't burn yourself out, but what? I was still quite raw at the time. Every time you brought Ken up, it disarmed me. All the words I thought I had to say would suddenly escape me, and I'd be left with nothing left on my mind. Wow. I've never heard about any of this before. I didn't know Mom had worried about me so much back then. Considering the fact that she was still pregnant with Aki when I threw myself at tennis, it makes me feel guilty for having put her through that kind of worry for no reason. We were both a mess back then, weren't we? That's likely an understatement, but yes. I bit my tongue for way longer than I'd care to admit. Though I ultimately didn't regret it, in time it became quite clear just how much you'd come to love tennis. Not just because of your father, but for yourself. It did? What do you mean? You remember when your brother was still little? I think you mean young. He's still little. That's uncalled for, even if true. Still, you and Aki did not get along most times. In fact, it was a bit stunning just how chaotic your relationship used to be. Ugh, I remember that. Those are dark days I never want to go back to, that much is for sure. Having a toddler Aki throwing tantrums whenever I tried to tell him something, ignoring me when I tried to talking over me. He really hated me back then. In fact, I seem to remember him mouthing off at you multiple times about how you couldn't order him around since you weren't his daddy. You seem disturbingly happy over memories of the worst time in Aki and I's relationship. I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm not trying to laugh at your misery. It's just the memory of a 4-year-old running away shouting, "Not my daddy," over and over while his brother chases him around the house with a wooden spoon is funny. I really don't want to agree with her here as a matter of principle, but I'm afraid I might crack and laugh if I'm not careful. Mom clears her throat, putting a hand on her chest and taking a deep breath, straightening herself on her hair. Jesus. Technically, that's true. Sorry, that just came out of nowhere. Where was I? Something about me chasing Aki around with a spoon. Yeah, that's right. As I was saying, you and your brother didn't exactly get along, but I remember right around when Aki started to show an interest in tennis. I brought him with me when it was time to pick you up from practice. You insisted on sticking around for just a few more drills. Your little brother, for all the grief he'd give you the rest of the time, just couldn't keep his eyes off you while you played. The entire time he watched you with this look of fascination, like he had no idea what he was seeing, and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it was his older brother that he was watching. The same older brother he seemed to resent so much. You really don't have to emphasize how much he didn't like me, Mom. I still remember. Sorry, my point is, after you noticed Akiyoshi's enthusiasm and his growing interest for tennis, you started to show off to him a lot more. You started to take a lot of joy in playing tennis and having us watch you. After that, I never felt a need to worry about it again. Huh. I don't really know what to say. I don't remember any of this. You'd think I'd have some memory of it, but it's almost like she's talking about someone else entirely. This all happened, 8 years ago? Jeez, it's like a whole lifetime ago. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Oh, I guess Aki and I started getting along marginally better once he started taking an interest in tennis. That much I do remember. One day, he did a complete 180 and started clinging to me and calling me Nichan and being all sweet and cute and loving and... Crap, now I really want to cuddle Aki. I'm remembering just how cute he used to be when he was a kid. Like, focus. This is an important conversation we're having here, not the time to be sidetracked. It's so weird, though. I'm racking my brain going over this stuff, but I can barely remember anything. Doesn't surprise me. You were going through a lot at the time. It's not like you had the calmest life. Not that I mind. It's not like there were no problems, but I'm happy with the life I led. That's quite sweet of you to say. It does make me a bit relieved to hear. I know it's going to be a big adjustment, but I'll be around every step of the way to help you, sweetie. No matter what path you choose to follow, I'm in the future. I'm in the future, or I'm the Jesus Christ, in the future. And you don't have to worry about me telling anyone about your true feelings on the matter. I know you don't want your brother or your friends to worry about you, so I understand why you lied, even if I don't agree with it. Thanks, though not everyone believed me. Oh? I'm still not sure what Saya and Keisuke will think of it. Saya is one of the most perceptive people I know, so I'm not sure I'll be able to fool her. On the other hand, Aki was pretty easy to fool despite how perceptive he usually is. At the same time, June doesn't seem at all convinced. I was going to add, and even though he's the least perceptive person I know, but I'm not so sure I can say that knowing what I know now. Sweetie, I think you're worrying too much. Even if your friend didn't believe you, he didn't say anything about it, did he? Not really. He's probably trying to give you space. At least you know he cares enough to have tact. God, tact. That word will be burned into my fucking brain. I'm not so sure that's the case. Sure, he didn't sell me out to the others, but he's been looking at me with a lot of suspicion, not to mention the jabs. Pretty sure he wants to bring it up and just doesn't know how. Then again, do I even have a right to complain? I got on June's case a lot when I first realized he was sick, and this isn't all that different. Oh, he's starting to put the pieces together that we put together a long time ago, that they're going to have a bonding moment over their secret feelings over a medical condition and how they're acting different and gah. Maybe it's not, but you won't know until you know. And if that's the case, there's no point in worrying yourself to death. Why not just assume that things are fine until they are actually proven to not be? That's one way to look at it. Not one that I think I could ever employ, though. That kind of positivity is just not something I can do right now. I mean, Faking positivity is all fine and good. I'm pretty sure I already managed to fool most of them by doing so. Internalizing it, though, that's a whole different story. No way I can manage that. I'm telling you, things aren't as bad as they might seem. You have people who care enough about you to stick by your side every single day despite everything that happened. I guess that's true. You don't guess. It is true. Now come on, stop gawking at me and eat your food before it gets cold. Yes, ma'am. And thanks. Of course, sweetie. Anytime. Despite the somewhat heavy conversation, the rest of our lunchtime is pleasant enough. Not that there's a ton more conversation to be had. Instead, I spend most of it considering everything that Mom had said to me. Maybe I should give it a try. Maybe I've been worrying too much. Maybe things might work out after all if I accept June's confession. Maybe. God knows there's been a lot of crappy things happening to me lately. It'd be nice if at least something good came out of it.